Got it.
Hello and welcome to the We All Follow podcast. My name is Matt Fox. I'm your host today. Back again for a three-peat, just like Kylian Mbappe. My man, Nigel, how's it going, buddy?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Very good.
All right, let's jump right into things today. Follow us on X at We All Follow Podcast. Nigel, give me your moment of the week.
Uh, I've had a series recently where my moment of the week has not even been good things. There've been a lot of bad things. Things that have gone wrong or things that I found hilarious. And this week I'm kind of stuck. I was kind of stuck. And I was stuck between three very, very different places. So do I go with Mikel Merino turning on the style, becoming Marindinho, uh, for the moment? And I thought, we always talk about Arsenal, and I'd love to do that, but I'm not. Then I thought, do we talk about Liverpool and Darwin Nunez's inability to hit a barn door from 10 yard out, Diogo Jota hitting the corner flag from 4 yard out? I thought, I don't want to concentrate on Liverpool because I want them to be make their own mistakes and be their own downfall. Let them laugh about let them worry about themselves. So my moment of the week is uh, Ruben Amorim deciding after 90 minutes of a basketball match, and I heard one person on social media, Boots Bants. You need to follow Boots Bants. He's hilarious. He called the Tottenham versus Man United game El Crapico. He said it's two meaty teams, two absolute. It was shit shitter. Pardon my French. But El Crapico, and it was Ruben Amorim, 90 minutes in, deciding at the end of a basketball match, do you know what I'm doing? I'm going to make a substitution, and I'm going to put a 17-year-old on for his first ever minutes in the Premier League. And it's like that El Neni clip. You know that El Neni clip where he came on, just ran in a circle and then came straight back off again because that's the end again. That was Chido Martin. That was his 2 minutes of fame going on, running around for 2 minutes, coming off after a 1-0 defeat, and Man United are in trouble. And yeah, so my moment of the week was Ruben Amorim spending 90 minutes not realising that he's got 7 substitutes sat behind him.
You know, I'm not sure if that was the pathway that Cheeto Obi Martin was exactly looking for when he left to Man United. He did get his first Premier League appearance, and maybe that's good enough and one for the history books for him and his family. I'm never going to slate a young player for moving for an opportunity. Obviously, it's a business, and these young men have a very short window in which to make money that ostensibly they need to have last for quite a long time until they can figure out what their next career is going to be. Um, so I don't begrudge him moving to Man United. I do think it's hilarious getting on at the end of a game when you haven't used any substitutes and you're down 1-0 away from home. But one might say that the moment of the week should have been Marmoush's hat trick
Mm.
against Newcastle. Obviously, McAtee put one in. I think he has like 6 and 8 or something like that in all competitions after scoring last night in a the most consolation goal of consolation goals uh, against their drubbing by Real Madrid. You could say it's Kylian Mbappe's Real Madrid hat trick, which, to be fair, the best part of the whole thing was like Mbappe running away and his celebration being like depicting how the goal went in. It's like, mate, we saw it. He was like, it went around, it went over. We're like, yeah, no, we know, bro, we know. Bless his heart. Maybe Jude can loan him a celebration for the next match. But my moment of the week is an Arsenal player. And this Arsenal player had 2 appearances, 52 minutes played, 18 touches, not zero point 0.8 non penalty XG, 0 goals, and 0 assists. And that player is none other than Darwin Nunez, who has been Arsenal's player of the last week. with undefeated performances in 2 matches, helping Arsenal get a leg back in to the title chase. So let's take that right into the league table, where Liverpool now have an 8-point lead with Arsenal have a match in hand. So Liverpool sit on 61. Arsenal obviously 8 points behind on 53. Forest continuing to keep some level of pace in terms of not totally falling off. Although they've lost 2 of their last 4, they've also collected wins, right? And as we know, the avoiding draws is the most important thing when you're chasing the Champions League. So they still sit 3 points above Man City in 4th. Bournemouth, again, hot on their tails after a big win this past weekend. A big win in so much that it was, against a lesser opposition, but necessary to keep things going away from home against Southampton. Chelsea, even on points with them, behind on goal difference on 43. Then you have Newcastle, Fulham, Villa, and Brighton rounding out the top 10. Aston Villa getting what I thought was a decent result given the drubbing that they took against Liverpool. Then you have Brentford, Spurs moving up into 30th, and they're even on points with Crystal Palace and Everton. Everton getting a big win this past weekend, and honestly on a really good run of form under their new manager. Man United in 29th, ahead of West Ham on 27, and then Wolves right above the drop zone on 19. Ipswich picking up a point this weekend. They do still look the most likely to stay up if it's not going to be if it's not them, Ipswich. I'm sorry, if it's not Ipswich, Leicester, and Southampton as the bottom 3. Nigel, what you got for me, bro? Obviously Liverpool, their results haven't been as bad as their performances might suggest.
Yeah, and I think this has been notable not only now, but it's been notable quite a lot throughout the season that Liverpool aren't as good as what the results were showing. They were getting wins when other teams weren't going to get wins. Something falling for them, a chance here, or a look at something like them. They were losing the XG on quite a lot of games, and you could tell that it was kind of looking a bit unsustainable. I mean, to be fair to them, they've kept on, they've kept going, but I'll come back to this. After 25 games last season, Liverpool was 7 points in front of Arsenal. After 25 games, in Jurgen Klopp's last dance, all that energy, they were 7 points clear of Arsenal after 25 games. They finished 5 points behind. So, Arne Slot comes out today, starts talking about Arsenal. Virgil van Dijk after the game, talking about Arsenal. And I said it on X earlier in reply to someone, and they agree. It's a bit early to start talking about your opponents. Mikel Arteta's not talking about Liverpool. What he's talking about is, he's saying, when it comes to the end of the season, we need to be in the room. If we're not in the room, then we haven't got a chance. But if we're in the room, we've got a chance. He's not talking about Liverpool's next game. He's not talking about Liverpool play before us. No. We just need to he's talking about us handling our business. Liverpool are already starting to talk about Arsenal. If I'm a Liverpool fan, alarm bells are starting to sound. And I think a few of the big accounts on X are starting to realise this, and they're all starting to go, oh, hey up. We're going a bit lemon booty here. I was talking to a couple of guys earlier about like where teams are and stuff like that, and what do you think is going to happen over the next few weeks. And someone said something really interesting to me, and they went, I actually think Spurs might get into the top 8. And I was like, what? And they went, yeah, I think Spurs will get top 8. I think they got a chance they could get in Europe. I'm like, you've got to be absolutely off your rocker if you think that. And he went, I've always maintained this, that goal difference shows where you should be in the table. So if you're on 0 goal difference, I'd expect it to be 10th or 11th. It says, if you've got a plus goal difference, I'd expect it to be above 10th. And if you've got a minus goal difference, I'd expect it to be below 10th. It says, so your goal difference usually tells you about where you are in the table. He says, and Tottenham have got a pretty healthy goal difference. And by my reckoning, if results would have gone their way, they should be around about 7th or 8th. And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And he went, "No." And I've had a look now, and he's right. He is right. And I kind of get his flow. So when people are saying, "Man, you shouldn't be down in 15th," I'm sorry, but your goal difference says that you should be in 15th. You should be in
Yeah, I
15th.
mean, if you look at last season, Man United finished way above where their goal difference said that they should have. Right?
Yeah.
They obviously they got some points and some big wins down the stretch. I mean, I understand goal difference for me is obviously a big determination. The issue with Spurs is that again, if you look at their goals allowed, they're 12th, right? And
Yeah.
so that's like, yeah, they can score. We know that they can score. The problem is, can they keep them out for any period of time long enough to get a couple results strung together, right? And the answer to that so far has been a hard maybe, right? They faced a horrid Man United team this past weekend,
Yeah.
but again, all Spurs just need to stick around long enough to get some of their players back, and then they have a chance. I mean, they go to Ipswich this weekend, which could be either a total abject disaster or a result, right? I don't think they either get a draw or they lose 2-0, and the away fans are jumping Ange Postecoglou in the parking lot. And then they host Man City, which, to be fair, Man City is not in the form that they used to be. But again, if you can't keep goals out and you're playing Man City with Marmoush and Holland, you're gonna have a bad time. Right, like that's the
Yeah.
issue with Spurs, and like we've talked about this a bunch of times on here. Spurs play Ipswich, then they host Man City. They have Bournemouth, Fulham, and Chelsea behind that. Right, like that is a uncomfortable. I'm looking at that, and if I'm a Spurs fan, I am God forbid, I am dreadfully uncomfortable because
Yeah.
Bournemouth can put them in. Fulham, you're playing at Craven Cottage. Like even Chelsea, again, they don't have the best defense, but they can score goals on their day, right? So like that's not really the fixture list that you're giving you a bunch of confidence moving into. But obviously, if they can get a couple results in there, then they're only 9 points behind 8th, right?
Yeah. I mean, when you're saying that they visit Ipswich, I mean that's a worry for me, because Ipswich beat them at their place. Ipswich got a draw against Villa and should have won really. A tough game, That is gonna be a tough game.
100%, 100%, and that's what I'm saying is like, I think a good result for Spurs in where they're at right now would be a draw, right?
Yeah,
Like,
no, I agree.
but if you lose that match away
Yeah.
and you don't score, then you're gonna be bringing on a lot of criticism.
Yeah. So I mean, so few things what we're thinking about now is, yeah, there's some good fixtures coming up this week. But I'll tell you now, if you are Manchester United, I would not be wanting to go to Everton. This is the last time that I would ever want them to go to Everton. They are flying, Everton. And yeah, this could get very, very nasty very quickly at Manchester United. I mean, considering that they, in the last 10 games, the 16th on form, 10 points from 10 games. They sacked Ten Hag. Ten Hag had got 11 points from 9 games. Okay, and they sacked him, did 1-3, drawn 2, lost 4 when they sacked him. Ruud van Nistelrooy comes in, wins 1 game. Yeah, takes him up to 14 points or whatever it is. And they've got 15 points since then. That's not great, is it? It is not great. And yeah, if it had frightened me. The fact that if you look at their next few games, they're Everton away, Ipswich at home in an evening match, and you know for a fact Ipswich are going to go and attack them because the way to get Man U is to attack you, and they've got Man U's kryptonite. Manchester United hate playing against a team who've got a tall, direct striker. I've said it for over a year and a half now. If you want to play against Man United, the best way to do it is playing with a tall, direct striker. Because what they tend to do is they'll put either Maguire or De Ligt to man mark him. And that's their centre back out of the game. They've got no other way of doing it. It's their centre back out of the game. So then you've got one of them quite wide and you've got another one on the left who've then got to defend 4 players effectively because they're going to be defending the 2 10s or the 2 8s and the wide players because their wing backs get caught too far up the pitch and there's a big gap behind. And all of a sudden you've got 4 on 3 and one of them's man marking. I'm just like, yeah.
It's not ideal. Everton have scored 12 goals in their last 5 Premier League matches.
Yeah, they're flying.
And
they are flying.
Man
mate.
United have a issue with putting the ball in the back of the net. Ultimately,
Big time. I mean, it's not going to get easier for Man United as well. After visiting Everton and playing Ipswich at home, they've got the host Fulham in the FA Cup. Then they've got Arsenal away at Leicester in the Ruud van Nistelrooy derby, away at Forest, Man City, away at Newcastle, home to Wolves, away at Bournemouth, away at Brentford. I mean, that takes you to the beginning of May. Things ain't getting easier. Now, the one thing what I will say is Man United won't go down because yes, they're playing against Ipswich in a few weeks, and Tottenham are obviously visiting Ipswich. But the thing what's going to help them is the fact that Ipswich, Leicester, and Southampton, I think, will go down. I think Wolves will stay up, and I've said Wolves will stay up.
I mean, the issue, if you look at the rest of the fixtures, Nigel, is that, and this is not to engage in hyperbole, but there's some like legitimate relegation 6-pointers with Man United written all over them, right?
Yeah.
They play Wolves, or they host Wolves. You know, they still have to play Leicester. They play Ipswich here shortly. I mean, they play Everton. Like, these are matches that could legitimately decide. And I think that Man United is going to. I don't think that they'll go down. But the problem is when you look at their goals allowed, like they're 16th on goals allowed. That's a bad position to be in.
I mean, I saw enough of Wolves at the weekend against Liverpool, and in their previous game to know that Wolves have got enough firepower to stay up. And the reason why Wolves are where they are is because they couldn't keep goals out of their own net. It looks like Vitor Pereira, I think he's got them a bit more solid defensively, and they're starting to stop goals going in. Now, if Wolves stop the goals going in and stop being stupid, Wolves will score goals. Cunha, Sarabia, Stan Larson, they'll score goals. They will score goals. The teams who are around them, who could, if Ipswich or Leicester really get the bit between the teeth, there is 10 points from Ipswich or Leicester to West Ham and 12 to Man United. But I'm saying if they get the bit between the teeth and they start grinding out a few results, with 13 games left, you could get drawn into something. Now, West Ham have got a big goal scoring problem, and Potter's gone in there, Fulcrug's injured. Evan Ferguson's gone there. You don't know if Evan Ferguson's going to be fit or not from 1 minute to the next. Obviously, Antonio's out for season. Somerville's out now, injured. Paqueta's out. Bowen's just come back from a fractured foot. So West Ham are struggling to score goals. They're going around about a goal a game, same as Man United. You wouldn't expect Man United to be on a goal a game. That is... I mean, the only teams that have scored less than Man United is Everton and the bottom 3. And like you said, Everton have got 12 in their last 5. They're rapidly catching up now. They've gone from a Daesh Brexit ball, and all of a sudden it's Moisinho's Brazilian style, isn't it? And Everton are solid at the back as well. They're quite solid at the back. So you've got to think that Everton are going to be on a rapid ascent, maybe up towards Brentford, Brighton 10th, 11th. And I think this is where the league table is going to start getting fun, because with the fixtures what we've got this week, Matt, we could start seeing quite a lot of movement.
Yeah, though, let's take a look now that we're there. So we have some big matches this weekend. I would immediately, obviously, drawn to Man City Liverpool, which will be taking place on Sunday.
Yeah.
Obviously, Arsenal hosting West Ham. Bournemouth and Wolves should be a fun one. I think
Yeah.
two solid teams. I mean, ultimately, I think Bournemouth has the quality there. We have, as we discussed, Ipswich hosting Spurs. Aston Villa Chelsea, another interesting one. And then arguably another one of the biggest matches of the weekend in the fight for Champions League places. You have Newcastle, who've, again, they're very hit and miss, right? They are very up and down, and this has been the story as we discussed early in the season, and really under Eddie Howe altogether, right? They lost 4-0 to Newcastle. Before that, they lost to Fulham. They, in the league we're talking about, they beat a poor Southampton side, and they had that 4-1 against Bournemouth as well. So against the good teams, with the exception of Arsenal, of course, it seems like Newcastle struggles. How do you see this one playing out? Obviously, this one's at St. James's Park.
It's funny actually, because I was saying about when you're saying about games. I'm looking forward to the game tomorrow night. Leicester at home to Brentford tomorrow night. You know that with both them teams, there's going to be goals. There will be goals. So I'm expecting a nice Friday night filled with fun.
Leicester 21 games without a clean sheet.
Yeah, I think Brentford is something like he's created since a 0-0 is bonkers. But Newcastle Forest, I actually think Newcastle are going to beat them, and I think that this might be the start of. I said on Saturday, Saturday morning, I said to my lad, we were doing the Sky Sports Super Six. He says, "What do you?" I says, "What do you reckon score will be?" He says, 2-2. I says, "I think Fulham are going to win 2-1." And it's now after that Brighton result, I thought, Forest are in it, and then I was talking to someone who's quite close to the Forest and said, "Oh, lads are on cloud nine." I thought, right, that's too early. They're going to lose to Fulham. They'll get beat by Newcastle. We'll turn up at the City Ground and beat them, and that's 3 losses in a row, and they'll drop. I still think that'll happen. So I think Newcastle will beat Forest, but I think it'll be a good game. But I think they'll beat them. I think it'll be quite convincing as well. I think Forest will give it a go. I think in the end, I think Newcastle maybe run about 3 or 4-1 winners.
Yeah, that one will probably have a lot of goals in it. Newcastle have more than 2.5 goals in 7 of their last 8 matches. Forest in 5 of their last 5. So you would imagine.
When I was saying that, I think that we're going to start seeing a lot of movement this week. I actually think the top 8, 9. I think you're going to end up with 3 distinct groups. Now, I think City will beat Liverpool at the weekend. After the lacking what took in Madrid, they need to turn up at the Etihad. If not, at what point do we look at Pep and say, maybe you're the problem?
Because I was thinking, I mean, it's hard to say. The question is which we don't know, is like, has he lost the dressing room, right? And maybe the players are just like, we know, like they knew going into that match that they were not going to win at the Bernabeu, but you would hope that they put in a good shift, and then they score in the first 5 minutes, and you're like, well, this is cooked. Interesting tactical decision to not play Haaland. Was that a tactical decision, or was that we're resting him for the match that we know really matters?
He'd got a. They said he'd got a knock. So I'll give him that. But I think City will beat Liverpool, and if City beat Liverpool, City will go up to 47 points, which is the same as Forest, with a much better goal difference. So City actually overtake them into third. All right. Arsenal beat West Ham. That'll put City 9 points behind Arsenal. Arsenal will only be 5 points behind Liverpool with a game in hand. So you got your top two, and then you'll have Forest, City. I think Bournemouth will probably beat Wolves, so that puts Bournemouth on 46. I think Chelsea will get beat by Villa, which puts Newcastle on 44.
Puts them in the next range.
Newcastle 44, Chelsea 43, Villa 42, and I think Fulham and Palace maybe is a draw. So Fulham just slipped to 9, but so you'll have Liverpool, Arsenal, and then you'll have City, Forest, City, Bournemouth, City, Forest, Bournemouth, and then I think you'll have like Newcastle, Chelsea, Villa. So there'll be like your three groups in the top 7 or 8 really. And yeah, so yeah, and then I think that's going to be the fight. Then I think that'll be the fight. I think that's how it'll be, and you'll get. I think there might be a little bit of cross between the two lower groups. I don't think anyone's going to get near the top two. I think the top two are in the sunset.
I think it's going to be hard for any of those teams to catch up. I do think that the Liverpool City game will be a high scoring draw, just because City can't keep it out at the back, and with the way that their defenders have been playing, and it to me it screams like Holland scores 2, Marmoush chips in a third, and then it's like 3-1 on 60 minutes, and then of course City can't bring it home, and Mo Salah does Mo Salah things and gets like a second half goal and assist, and it's a 3-3 draw. But that being said, any points dropped at this point for Liverpool is just going to continue on the narrative that things are shaky, and again, they're at the point of the season where the matches are getting tougher. There's going to be Champions League here soon, and they've been able to play the same 11 or so players every match for the whole season. So
I was just going to say, Wolves should have got more than one on Saturday. Yeah, Wolves should have got more than one on Saturday. They could have had Sunday. They could have had 2 or 3. Liverpool look to get a win. Now, if Wolves do get their second goal, that with 3 league games in a row that have conceded 2. They got beat by Plymouth the week before that, and just before that, we got spanked by PSV Eindhoven, didn't they, in Europe? So Liverpool's defense is not great. You get at Liverpool, it's not great, and I agree with you. I think that there will be a lot of goals. I said before, it smacks of like a 4-2 City with Haaland getting 2 or 3. I just can't see Liverpool getting a result there. I genuinely can't. I think Guardiola knows. He knows if they don't beat Liverpool at the weekend, there is definitely a good chance that City could be in a dogfight for Europe. I don't think that's going to wash. I don't think it washes. I think he's got to get at least third. So yeah. It's a tough one, that. But I mean, like I said, I think Everton are going to beat Man United. I think Arsenal beat West Ham, and I think that's going to be comfortable. By the way, I know I said last week, I said 3-0 Arsenal to beat Leicester. It ended up 2-0. It weren't comfortable, and it wasn't comfortable. Could have been, but wasn't. I think Arsenal handle West Ham. Like I said, I think Bournemouth are going to probably get a result against Wolves. But that'll be another one. I think there'll be goals in that. I think there'll be 3 or 4 goals.
That game screams basketball game.
Yeah.
Right.
Fulham Palace is the one. Fulham Palace is my big draw. That's my 2-2 or 3-3 draw. Is Fulham Palace, and it'll either be a big draw or it'll be 0-0. It's one of them. It's one of them. And I think Ipswich. I think Ipswich is the double chance shot this week. I think Ipswich double chance against Tottenham, I think, is a great shot.
Yeah, I mean, when you when we look at the matches, obviously, and when we look at the table as well, and it seems so both, not both, Juve and Milan, AC Milan were both knocked out of the Champions League this past week. So it does seem extraordinarily likely that
Mm,
the Premier League will have the fifth Champions League slot, right? Which really does make an interesting scenario for the next. Um, for that top eight, like you discussed, right? Because you'll have
mm.
five Champions League, you'll have one Europa Conference. That puts you um, at seven. But
Yeah,
then, depending on who wins the FA Cup, then you could
could be another one.
potentially have you could have an eighth spot.
Yeah.
Um, so when you look at, like you discussed, when you look at those groupings, right? The Forest, City, Bournemouth, probably you could put Chelsea in potentially in that group fighting for Europe,
Mm,
and then kind of Newcastle, needs to be in that category, right? I
mm,
think if they want to maintain the trajectory that they've been on, yeah, sure, a League Cup would be nice. They haven't had a trophy in, I think it's like 70 odd years, so that would be a nice day out for their fans on the 16th of March. But ultimately, if they want to keep their ambitions and they want to keep that squad together, they have to finish in Europe, right?
mm,
There's going to be players on that team, one Alexander Isak, who's going to be angling for a move if they don't, right? And I don't think Isak is going to be happy with playing in the Europa League, right? He's going to want to be playing in the Champions League, and ultimately, I think there might be enough agitation there if they don't make that happen. So yeah, it's certainly that it'll be a big result for them. I do think that Newcastle will get it over the line. They play really well up there at St. James's Park. That place is a fortress. Let's touch on the Aston Villa Chelsea game, Nigel, because that's one that's intriguing to me. Villa not having won in their last five, right?
mm.
Chelsea super inconsistent. They've one loss their last four. Obviously Villa coming off what I would their performance is so weird, right? Because they gave up all of this XG against Liverpool, but they looked pretty good in doing it, right? There was like a couple of offside um, goals that were obviously disallowed.
Mm,
They have the ability to play passes and move through the gears and through the thirds really fluidly at times, right? And they also have this tendency to give up the most preposterous chances. Obviously, they also have a bunch of players out right now. Right now, their injury list includes Pau Torres, Boubacar Kamara, Onana, Tsasi, Konsa, Leon Bailey, and Ross Barkley all out. Konsa and Bailey doubtful for the
mm.
match coming up this weekend. So I mean, and then again, if you look at the Chelsea side, right, they have a rash of injuries. Jackson, Lavia, Fofana, Batashili, Madrid is suspended. Gusto is doubtful. Giyu's out. You know, the Madueke's out. It's kind of like the battle of the walking wounded on these ones. Um, but do you think that ultimately, I guess the question is, do you think that Aston Villa will be able to cut through Chelsea enough to get the result this weekend?
Yes. And I'm going to give two reasons why I think Aston Villa will win. One, Aston Villa's attacking prowess, and two, Chelsea's goalkeeper. Because a bit like El Crapico last week, Tottenham, Man United, Chelsea, when it comes to goalkeepers, also El Crapico. They've binned off Sanchez and replaced him with Jorgensen, who was just as bad. And he was shocking at the weekend. I mean, oof. Yeah, I think that's why. I think that's the other reason why. I mean, if you're Chelsea, Mark Cucurella, awful at Brighton. It was one of the worst defensive performances I've seen. Levi Colwell has been awful recently. Uh, Obviously, Reece James is claiming his incapacity benefit, which he has been for quite a bit of time. Him and Luke Shaw should start a podcast. They spend enough time off the pitch together, don't they? So they might as well start a podcast. Yeah, Chelsea have been shocking at the back, and I think one thing what one thing what hid them quite well early on was they were playing all right as two centres, and Caicedo was on form, on a bit of form. All of a sudden, Caicedo's dipped a bit. Defensively, he's dipped. He's still trying to plug a gap going forward as well, and they're getting caught out. They're getting caught out so easy in transition. Brighton just decimated them. And when you look at Aston Villa, when you look at Brighton's strengths, they've got 5 good forwards, 5 speedy forwards, 5 forwards who know where the net is, good ball carriers in midfield who can drive forward it, same as Brighton. 2 wingers who can take people on dead easy, same as Brighton. A goal scorer who knows where the net is, same as Brighton. But also same as Brighton. They've got a goalie. Emi Martinez, one thing what he didn't used to be good at was playing with his feet. Now he's quite comfortable playing with his feet. And it wouldn't surprise me to see him launching long balls like they had Verbruggen doing, launching long balls into the channels down the sides of the Chelsea defenders, especially if you know that you've got Watkins or Rashford or Marlon or Rodgers or Ramsey or Asensio running into it. I mean, I think Chelsea could get a big hiding. If I'm Villa and I've just played that game the other night against Liverpool, yes, I've spent quite a bit of energy, but you'll quickly recover that because you think we should have won that, but we've just took a point off the team at the top. And I think if you're Villa now, you're thinking, can't wait to play these guys. We're up for this. I mean, I think Chelsea could be on a hiding this weekend, a real hiding. And if you do get a hiding, what does it say for Enzo Maresca? Because he's done a bit what he's done with Leicester. At Leicester, he was flying early in the season, and by the end of it, from Christmas through to the end of the season, they were flying by the seat of the pants, hanging on fingernails. And at one bit got overtook, didn't they? They had a 20-point lead or something, and then he got overtook. I mean, come on. And he's done a bit the same with Chelsea. He got Chelsea up there. Chelsea at one bit were 5 points ahead of Arsenal. They're 10 behind. They're 10 behind. They were 5 in front.
3 wins in their last 11 in all competitions, dating back to the 22nd of November. And, one of those came against Morecambe in the FA Cup third round. Not exactly a ringing endorsement of the form, ultimately. And I think the way that you beat Chelsea is like being okay with a little bit of a basketball game, right?
Mm.
And ultimately, I think Aston Villa are okay with that. They're cool with the basketball game. They don't mind a basketball game, and they have. I mean, Yuri Tielemans. I mean, this guy, he might look like a thumb, but good lord, can this guy hit? Like, how is the guy who's not fast, not particularly athletic, and he's always seems to be in the right place? Like, he's got that I'm always in the right place energy, which obviously it's a thinking man's game, but he also has like the left. He's 2-footed. He's a really good player, and I think a lot of these players. When we look at it from the Liverpool, from the Arsenal, from the Man City's perspective, right? You're like, that guy's not good enough. But when you find your level at a team that wants to be in the 4th, 5th places, right? 3rd, 4th, 5th. I don't think that any of the Villa fans or even their management anticipates them challenging for the league every year. But they got a manager who's a cup specialist. They have players who are in the top maybe 4 or 5 right range for their position, right? And then when you go into Europe and you have a manager who's good at knockouts, anything can happen, right? And so you have these players who have this level of ability, and I think Tielemans is definitely one of them.
Funny thing is, I think Arsenal should have bought him when they had the chance. I think he's the exact player what Arsenal need to play. If they're going to play right in the 6, he's the exact player you want stood next to him in the 8. He's perfect. And I can remember when he first came over to Leicester, and I couldn't believe that they'd managed to get him, because he was balling out in League One at 17. I thought, player, player. And he came across to Leicester, and he immediately looked like a Frank Lampard style midfielder, where he's just going to get goal after goal after goal after goal after goal. But he can do more than what Lampard can do defensively and build-up wise. Just better on the ball, but he is that type of player where he's got the intelligence. He has got the intelligence to know where to be around the box. He gets himself in good positions, but he's got an absolute thunderbolt of a shot. With little backlift, his ball striking is unreal, Tielemans. But he's just an intelligent player. I mean, and I'd encourage anyone, if you want to see the pace of a game and how a player plays, Yuri Tielemans wore a body cam in a pre-season friendly in America. Search it on YouTube and watch it. It's the most tiring 10 minutes what you'll ever watch. You get tired. You watch that and you realize the pace of the game and how quickly that brain's got to work.
And that's a preseason game. I'll actually put that in the match notes. In the podcast notes in the description down below when we put this out. Any last notes for this weekend before we get out of here, Nigel? You want to do? Let me get some scores. I need some scores, Nigel.
Right. So I'm going. I'm going to go Leicester 3, Brentford 2. Yeah, I said that. I'm going to go Everton 3, Manchester United 1. I'm going to go Arsenal 3, West Ham United 0. Bournemouth 2, Wolves 1. Palace Fulham 3-3. Ipswich 2, Tottenham 1. Southampton 1, Brighton 4. Villa 4, Chelsea 1. Newcastle 4, Forest 1. Man City 4, Liverpool 2. I think the bottom three games all have a 4-goal winner.
All right, and we have Ipswich as our double chance pick.
I think they'll at least get a point. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Nigel, as always, it's been a pleasure. Talk to you next week. Hopefully, we can have some other of our friends on. And until then, follow us on X, like and subscribe down below. Put your moment of the week in the comments. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.